Hello and welcome to Season 3, Episode 2 of the Let's Face It podcast. Today we're proudly joined by Gareth Fox, someone who I've been watching from afar for the last while, who is a performance psychologist. So absolutely honoured to have Gareth here this morning with us. And just off the back of last night, we were at the Balmoral Hotel for Kieran May's event, Natural Resilience. It was class. It's all about taking action, setting goals, visualization, and something that I always say and something that I said from my days in rehab about being excited about who you want to become. And it's actually class that Gareth's actually in this morning because all this stuff's kind of fresh in my head in and around visualization and goal setting and sort of what goes on up here. And 90% of the time what goes on up here is absolute madness. So that's why I try to live from nearly like a soul level these days, which we're going to touch on again throughout our chat about in and around love and unconditional love and stuff like that. Stuff that's important. We're going to step out of our comfort zone a tiny bit, be a wee bit vulnerable with each other, and that's okay too. And hopefully you just get something out of it. But what's the crack, Gav?
All's good.
Keeping alright?
Yeah, all is very good.
Great to have you.
Great to be asked on. For anyone that's listening, we first bumped into each other in Richie's place.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this today in the car on the way up here, and quick chat because we've both sort of been following each other online, and I was there because I was going to give a talk in Richie's place a couple of days later, but I was also there because I worked with Fermanagh and they were playing Tyrone, and we were talking a wee bit about sport and about culture and whatnot, and the last thing you said to me was, but that's what it's all about unconditional love. And the image that I had was something happened to me when you said it, and I was like, no, we need to speak about this because it had that little sort of magical moment. And when I was thinking about it today, it was like, you know, the what do they call the stonemasons?
Yeah.
When they do that little handshake and then they move their finger to let the other person know that they're in the same club. That's what it felt like. Yeah. It felt like we're in the same club here because you had said something for me that I've been thinking about for a long time. And it was like you gave me that little sort of, it's a weird little handshake, I think, where they rub a little inside finger or something.
Yeah.
And it just basically lights up the other person to say, we're both in the same wavelength, or we're both in the same group. And when you said that, it just had that effect. It was like you'd given me a insider handshake. You know, yeah. That's what it felt like.
Isn't that amazing? You don't even realise that. But do you know what I mean? I came away from that night not realising that at all until you actually sent me a message about it. And obviously you agreed with me and what I was saying, and it's something that you can't say to everybody these days because I think we live in a world, or even in a sporting context, where it's all win, and it's all sort of everything's just through down our throat or whatever. But whenever you come at it from another angle, like we just spoke about the unconditional love, I think that's how you can get the best out of everyone, and I think that's how I got the best out of me as a person, through having that unconditional love for others, but even for myself.
Yeah, like, so we'll talk today, I suppose, more so in a sporting realm because we're both heavily involved, but this goes way beyond sport. This goes into life in general. But the way I kind of see it is that in order for a sports team to perform at their best, there has to be what we call psychological safety, but a huge part of that is unconditional love. And I was trying to create an image of what that looks like, because if I go into a team and I say, okay lads, or okay girls, I'm going to love you this season, you've just laughed.
Yeah.
Because the reaction to that is, well, you can go and fuck off, you know. I was actually asking Sean, am I allowed to curse? You know, it's like I curse quite often. So how can we get beyond that? How can I love you without you know that I'm loving you? Weird. But I had this image of, you know, a parent who's looking after a child, or maybe we take it away from a child. Let's say you're an owner of a dog and you love that dog, but the dog's sick and you need to give that dog medication, but it's not going to take it. So you have to find a way to give that thing that you love what it needs without it knowing it. So you kind of have to hide unconditional love in the food, you know, so they don't know that they're receiving it, because if they know point blank that they're receiving it, they'll reject it. In the same way that a child or a dog doesn't like the taste of medicine, so they're going to reject it. So how can I give that in the background to make you better because you're suffering from something without you really knowing it. So that's the image that I have, is that when you go into a team, or when you go into a company, or when you're working with an individual, or even with your family, it's like, how can I give you that thing that you need without you knowing up front that that's what you're receiving? Because like you just laughed when we talked about, or when I mentioned that, we automatically reject it.
Yeah.
So it's the under thing that's in team sports and change rooms. The thing that's happening underneath is that you're providing safety without them knowing it.
And why do you think I left?
Because first of all, we're just not used to it.
Okay.
Like if I had to turn around and say to you, look, I'm going to love you today.
Yeah.
We're not used to that.
Yeah.
And it feels really uncomfortable, and it also feels really unsafe, doesn't it?
Maybe. Yeah.
But it's what you need.
Yeah.
In order for you to have this conversation. And I have a little activity that we'll do in a little bit, but it's going to make you feel really uncomfortable. It's going to make me feel really uncomfortable, but it's going to change the dynamic between both of us.
Yeah.
So we do shy away from words like love, because they make us uncomfortable, and because they make us feel seen in a way that we're not used to. And that's what the activity is going to be about. It's about being seen.
Yeah.
But we're not used to being seen. We don't really want to be seen, but we need to be seen. That's where the sort of magic happens. Yeah.
And what about, so I totally agree, I'm with you, right? So even at a level where I'm like, don't feel like I actually deserve it. So this stems from maybe like childhood, or things that like trauma, or things that have happened. So whenever you come in and you're trying to give me this sort of love, or whatever, in any sort of sense, whether it's in work or school or even sport, I experience that now. I'm like, whoa, back off. Why would someone want to love me?
Because this is the difference between conditional and unconditional love. Now, I previously studied, before performance psychology, I studied hypnotherapy, and one of the greatest things that I learnt is that all labels are limiting. So I'm a parent and I say, God, I love you because you're so smart. Sounds brilliant. I've just limited you, because now what you've understood is, if I'm not smart, I won't receive love. Mm-hmm. So what that leads to is perfectionism, and also on the other side of that is procrastination.
Yeah.
So if I don't do this thing, then I don't risk the idea of failure, so you can still love me. Because if I do it and I risk failure, and I'm not that smart one that was receiving love for being smart, I won't receive it. Or, I love you because you're beautiful. Okay, so what I understand then is that the only way that I can receive love is through beauty. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say I'm now an adult and relationships aren't going well, I'm unable to connect with people, and then the little thing in my head, which was, you receive love because you're beautiful, now sort of not inspires me, but almost drives me and forces me to change my appearance, to become more beautiful. Because I want to receive love, because someone has given me a label, but it's completely limited me. I love you because you're skinny, I love you because you're great at this, I love you because you're great at that. And you think you're doing something really good because you're giving positivity or positive reinforcement, but what you're doing is you're limiting. You're always limiting as soon as you give someone a label, because you're putting a condition on the love, that's why you're receiving that love.
And it's very hard to. Now, there's two sides to what I'll start with, sort of having that love for yourself, so you don't need. So if you come and say to me, now I've got this stage where I'm able to do this, whereas before I would have hung on every word like that. So if you had to come into me, say I had a good match, so if I didn't get any attention for the whole week, this is even from I was a child, like. So even at home, if I didn't get any attention and I go out on a Friday and play class in a match, and the manager comes over and like, you're fucking brilliant, your class or whatever, like automatically that's validating me and validating like, oh, you're brilliant. And that then gives me the energy and gives me all this thing. And then as I go on, then whenever you're going in and you're drinking or whatever, and you're out in the night out, and your band boys fucking drinking bags of coke and all this carry on, and then they're loving you. So based on that, because I'm facilitating their needs. And then whenever I went to rehab and started to fucking dive into my patterns of behaviour and different things like that, it's like, I actually need to have a relationship with me. So what you say in terms of you played class today won't have an impact on my daily life, because I know deep inside that I love myself and what I'm doing is right. But on the other side of it, does that make sense?
Yeah.
So on the other side of it, it's like, in a sporting context, it's almost like, how is it possible for a manager or someone like more management, I suppose, well, you are in the management, but even a selector and a team, to love someone unconditionally because it's a performance, or sorry, it's a results business. Just like, do you know what I mean? So if I go out on Sunday, or we're playing, well, I'm injured at the minute, but we're playing Kilkenny next week and whatever, how is that possible to keep that unconditional?
So when I was thinking about it, I don't think you can have unconditional love in sport.
Okay.
And I do. Now, you can't have unconditional love in sport because there are conditions of respect, and there rules of behaviour. You know, you need to do this first of all, which is you need to...
Do you agree with that though? Like rules of behaviour?
Etiquette, let's call it then.
Okay.
Showing up.
Right, okay.
Being on time.
Yeah.
Respecting the material around you, respecting the players around you. There are conditions to you being present in this team. But if you can match those, then the rest is unconditional, regardless of your performance. Like, the amount of athletes that I've worked in, whether it's team sports or individual sports, who receive conditional love is unbelievable. But that's because of a management who are, and this is something that I'd sent to Neil McManus, a podcast about finite and infinite games. So an infinite game, I love this idea. An infinite game is, like, football's an infinite game. Business is an infinite game, because you can't win business, you can't win football. Football will always exist regardless if you play it or not. So it's an infinite game. But if we take a finite mindset into it, then that's where things fall apart, which is we have to win this cup, we have to win this trophy. What you should be doing is, maybe should's a bit strong, but what would be great if you could do is take the attitude of, regardless if we win, lose or draw, we maintain the game. So if you can continue to maintain the game, and the way that I see that is that we start off at under 8 or under 10, and then we look to progress to next level, until we hit senior, and then that's where people go, no, it's about winning. But for me, if we follow the rules of an infinite game, senior should be about inspiring the next generation, not about winning. You will win through the good habits of inspiring the next generation. It's a side product, like it's a byproduct of the good stuff. But that's how we should approach it. But unfortunately, we've got management who... Not we, but management exist who... Are
you getting the sack?
There's management who exist who... their value, and it comes down to exactly what you've said, being able to love yourself regardless of win, lose or draw. But they're not at that point. And so that then feeds into the players, but it's about, I need to win this championship, or I need to win this league, or I need to feel good about myself. So they're still playing a finite game. And then what that ends up doing is that'll run its course, and it'll break down trust between the players. It'll break down because it's been ruled or run by someone who isn't able to step away and go, regardless if we win this or we don't win this, let's still continue. You know what I mean? So that's where the conditional comes in as well. You know, management who aren't self-aware and who aren't able to separate their own value as a person from the result, that feeds into the group that they manage, and it's just really unstable. You know what I mean? There's no foundations there, and the whole thing will eventually fall apart. We see it all the time. Like, there's a lady that I really value her work. She's called Pippa Grange, Dr. Pippa Grange. She wrote the book Fearless. So she's worked in AFL, she's worked with the England soccer team. She talks about winning deep and winning shallow. So winning shallow is, we win a championship this year, but the following year we get knocked out quite quickly, and then everything falls apart because there's infighting, and there's no trust, and there's no love. Winning deep is that we mightn't win a championship this year, but we get stronger, and then we get stronger, and then over the next 10 years we become really dominant because we're playing an infinite game. We understand that the thing is long term. So we build the good habits from underage to senior, who then create new good habits for underage, etc. And the ball keeps rolling. Like, so that idea of winning deep, winning shallow, it's really important to look at.
And how more difficult is it working with an individual doing that? Because I'd be close enough now with my Conlon, who is very much tunnel vision towards us, basically what you're saying there about trusting the process nearly, and believing that there's a greater thing happening here, even after every setback and stuff like that. But how more difficult is that doing it with 50 lads or 40 lads on a team? And I'm automatically thinking of things like egos, things like lads, like everything that happens in a team dynamic, like lads fucking thinking they should be involved more and they're not involved more, lads who are injured, who are rotten apples, different things like that. So I'm thinking egos, rotten apples, but I'm also thinking a culture. Like, you obviously are the management or the club or whatever it is creating that culture, but sometimes there's fucking chinks in the armour, isn't there?
There are, and there will be, but the right management or would be strong enough to either deal with it or get those people on board as well. Right. You know, the best managers I've worked with, their unbelievable qualities, their kindness.
Okay.
That's like working with Glenn at the minute, you know, not to speak out of turn, but like Malachy O'Rourke's extremely kind. That's his best quality.
Define that. So
if you're looking at culture, what you want is to create an environment where everyone feels safe and they belong. Mm-hmm. Now there are certain cues that you can actively work on, and we call them the soft skills, and you actively work on them over and over and over and over again, because there's no point in creating a safe environment and then not adding any more energy to it. You know, well, we've got that, because it'll fall apart. But he would do it naturally. It's just part of him. And your cues are how you talk to individuals. Can you keep eye contact? Can you this? How do you deliver bad news?
Yeah.
How do you deliver bad news to a player? You do it face to face instead of sending a text message, because you're still keeping that safety, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, kindness is a quality that we don't associate with sport, because the vocab that we use around sport is warlike. We're going into battle. We're doing this, we're doing that, and it's warlike. And so when you're going into war, kindness doesn't feel like the quality that you need in order to win the battle. But kindness is extremely... Like, the word culture comes from the Latin cultus, which means to care. Mm-hmm. That's what it means. So culture, when people talk about a successful culture, it means that people actually give a crap. Give a crap about each other, give a crap about the people who work in the background, give a crap about the facilities, the gear, the water bottles, the balls. They give a crap. That's what it's about. So that's where kindness and caring are huge parts of that. So those are the things that you want to build. So when you're talking about rotten apples, can we get them on board? Mm. Can we work with them in such a way that they give a crap? Mm. Like, there are certain things. So one of them is, I'll do it with you now, because it's I can't put that off anymore, because it's frightening me, right? So when we're talking about belonging cues and we're talking about safety,
I'm not going to have anyone beating down the door here, am I?
No. We're talking about belonging cues, we're talking about safety. There's certain things you can do. One of them is physical contact, right? So if I'm talking to a player, I'm actively in my head giving a belonging cue. So I'm going to be standing there and going, I don't know how you're getting on, and I'm making contact. So what that's doing is that's making you feel safe. Yeah. Now, another one is, and this was, I had a conversation with an intercounty player who manages on an underage team, and we were talking about what are the qualities that we want that underage team to learn in order to take it to the next level, and then when they come into senior football, the transition's seamless, basically, or, you know. And yeah, people might go, yeah, kicking off their bad foot or whatever. I don't know what the term is in hurling, hitting off their bad hand. But no, and we decided that it was eye contact. Mm. So eye contact, and we'll do this activity now. I'll explain it after, right? So I'm going to set 1 minute on my timer here, okay, right? And for anyone listening, there'll be 1 minute silence. Just bear with us.
Yeah.
Right?
But if you're on YouTube, you have the pleasure of watching us stare at each other. I'm assuming that's what's going to happen.
So this is called eye gazing, right? And I first was made aware of eye gazing from an ex-girlfriend of mine who, when we lived in Germany, well, she's German, would go to women's circles.
Okay.
And it was one of the practices that they would do at women's circles. So she brought that home. She's like, I want us to practice this. And the first couple of times, and actually we only did it a couple of times because I hated it. Absolutely hated it. Now, we talk about it after, so I'm going to set up a minute, okay? Don't worry. Don't need to
Sean,
think
put
about
it on
time.
the timer there.
I'll have it on my watch so
sure?
it vibrates.
Okay.
So don't worry about the time. All I want you to do, and I'm going to force it a wee bit, and I want you, when you're looking at me, to think two things. I want you to think, I'm letting you see me.
Okay.
And also want you to think, I'm seeing you. Okay? So all you're going to do is, you're just going to look at me in the eyes. Ready? So, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Fuck me.
How'd that make you feel?
Emotional. Very emotional. Is that normal?
In what way?
With no words and just energy, I felt like you understood me.
But it was devastatingly difficult.
Oh fucking no! Oh, I like that. Like it was one of the most. It was the hardest thing ever. Like one of the hardest things I've done. It's very uncomfortable, but that's what I got from it, I think.
So, this, by the way, is something that I actually want to start up. Right? I really...
Does that make sense? Sorry, would that be a fair reflection? How did you feel?
Horrible.
Yeah.
Because I knew that I'd said that we were going to do it for a minute. I actually put it on for a minute 20.
Yeah.
I really wanted to force it. Did you notice that we'd gone beyond it?
Yeah.
I really wanted to force it. But after a certain amount of time, I wanted that to stop.
Yeah.
But that's what's great about it.
Yeah.
It's because suddenly I realised, here's something that's really basic and really human, and that's how we connect with people that I can't do. I'm really struggling with this. So what you're looking to do is, first of all, the benefits of it is you create a connection. Mm-hmm. So you were talking about soul is the word that you used earlier, and we always say that your eyes are the vessel to your soul. Mm-hmm. What you're doing is I still feel like I'm like
shook. No, I'm the same.
Yeah.
I feel really. It's weird, like.
But what you're doing is you're letting me see you.
Yeah.
Right. So therefore, any pretext that we had about who you are, who I am, that gets shattered completely. I'm letting you see me as well. So you're looking at all my flaws, whether that's facial flaws, whether that's just even how uncomfortable that I would have looked doing that. There's a few times that we smirked because it's like I'm fucking struggling with this so much.
Yeah, like stop recording.
Yes, but that's what I wanted us to experience because I knew that we would. But that's connection. That's something that we don't have in sport, in change rooms. Go into your teams and do that with all the players. How many of them could you last more than 30 seconds with? But imagine you could. Imagine what that's like, how powerful that is within a team. Because you're creating intimacy.
Yeah.
Right? You're creating trust. Because I put it up on my Instagram, not to get really distracted, but I put it up on my Instagram yesterday, a video that I saw. Sometimes you get caught up in Instagram shorts, and it's about this, I can't remember what the program was, but about first dates, and you have man and woman sitting opposite each other, and then this woman says, look, I'm actually wearing a wig. She takes the wig off, and he's completely shocked by it. And there's a waitress as well, completely shocked by it. And then she notices, and you can see in her face, she feels really uncomfortable. She puts it back on. And then he suddenly goes, oh, keep it off. And then she goes to the bathroom, goes back out, takes it off, and that's it. They have a conversation with who she is. So what she's done there is she's put out a vulnerability sign that makes him feel comfortable, not about making her feel comfortable. He now goes, I feel safe here because you've been vulnerable in front of me, which allows him to then tell her, you're safe as well. So what we're doing is we're creating vulnerability, which now allows you to feel safe with me and allows me to feel safe with you, which means I know you've got my back.
Yeah.
Now, we've just done it for 1:20, and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm still shocked from it.
I'm sweating.
But like, it's such a basic thing to look in someone's eyes.
Yeah.
But what you're like, if we did that week upon week, practicing it with other people, you're really lowering stress, anxiety, even though right now it mightn't feel like that, because you put yourself under you put yourself into a stress response there because you feel uncomfortable with it. Like what I would eventually love to do, and I will do it, and I'm going to put out the name of the Facebook group, or not the Facebook, Instagram group, because I haven't created it yet, but I will create it, is that this is a weekly thing that people come together and do. Where they sit together. Let's say if anyone wants to offer a space, like a yoga space where it's comfortable to sit down.
Well, to stop you on your tracks. Well, I can't really say much, but yes, I will talk after.
So I'm going to call this Instagram group Eye Gazing Social, right? I'll have to remember that. So if we can bring people together, and let's say it looks a bit like speed dating. Okay, so 1:20 there was extremely painful. I would love to do it. Do you think you could do it for 5? Maybe we don't start off at 5. Maybe we start off at 3.
Yeah,
and then we do 3 minutes of that, and then the 2 people can discuss what it was that they felt, and then we move on to someone else, and we do half an hour of doing that. But the value that you would get from that is unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like. Do you feel more comfortable now, or are you still shook?
I'm still shook.
Yeah.
But I know that I've exchanged something.
Okay.
So therefore, like, I gave a talk recently to a team on Teams, and I was talking about this. It's like, we all go in the change room, we go into our little group, we get changed, we go out. First of all, how many people did you say hello to?
Yeah.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're not seeing everyone. So the little clip I put up was that avatar, I see you. Because that's what it's about. It's about, look, I see you with all your imperfections, all your flaws, but we're together here, you know? So I get teams, the first thing I do when I get working with teams is I get them, when they go into the change room, they fist pump everyone. And then you sit down and the next person who comes in goes around fist, hello, how you doing? Because we're in this together. If I want to achieve my individual thing, I need you. So I'm going to value you and I'm going to see you. So if we can get, like, as you're saying, talking to this player about bringing this into, let's say, under 16s or whatever, you imagine after a year, yes, the lads will feel really uncomfortable with it, but after a year, what have you created in that change room? What type of connection have you created? It's mad. For me, it would feel unbelievable. Uncomfortable as hell in the beginning, but then you get used to it. So now I know all the players, I've seen them. You know, that's a... We think about social things. So we create connection through meeting people and going for coffees. We create connection by doing difficult activities, sea dips and whatnot. But are we really having that intimate connection? Like if I go and meet someone for a coffee, part of me is thinking, what's on my phone now? I'm not seeing you.
Yeah.
But that's the activity that we need to do in order to really see someone. So yeah, it's uncomfortable. Imagine we did this tomorrow and then did it the following day. This time next week, we'll just really be able to sit down.
Then ultimately get to a point where I'm like, Gareth, like, and we're talking about vulnerability, I can be so vulnerable with you and so open and so honest and so transparent. It's fucking incredible.
That's the activity that gets to your soul.
Yeah. And then I'm just thinking, I asked you a question there a while ago about, fuck me, it's okay, because like I can only imagine this must be far easier for Mick Conlon because he's doing this on his own, boom, boom, boom. And then now I'm sort of going back, I'm going, no. Because there's fucking 40 people. If we get 40 people in a room to be able to be vulnerable and to be so open and honest and transparent and to be able to see each other, like imagine the magic that you can create.
But that's what it's all about. It's about caring. Culture's caring. Like this, we're talking about sports, but if you're sitting today and you're in a relationship, do it with your partner.
Yeah.
You want to create intimacy and a closer bond with your partner. See each other properly, because we don't, like in relationships, we fall into the habit of this, what it looks like. I come back from work, stick on the dinner, we sit down, eat dinner, we watch Netflix. To be actually connect and see each other and go, right, this is who I am. You know, like, don't get me wrong, that was difficult, but I feel more comfortable sitting here now.
Yeah, no, so do I.
It's just like, well, he knows me now.
Yeah.
You know, he's seen my soul in a way, but it's like, that's what it is. You know, so yeah, look, I do things really poorly. I'm a life coach, so I talk to people and you know, give them tools, and half of them I'm not doing myself and stuff like that. But it's like, I feel like, not that it's forgiven, but it's like, well, I get it, because you're human and you're flawed, and that's how it goes.
And that's another important thing too that you're talking about, because humans, like we said at the start there about labels, and I talked about it last week at an event. Where was it? At the Mac, at that Momentum event, talking about labels and like the person behind the label. We spoke about it at the start there too, about, so if I'm a sales rep, even in a job, or if I'm even in a team setting, like the wing forward, 2 wing forwards are the people who have to fucking do the donkey work, running back and forward or whatever, or I'm the head of marketing in a job. Is that who you are because of that title? Because I go in the AA room and I'm like, I'm Donald, I'm an alcoholic, is that who I am? Is that going to stop me from being excited about who I want to become, or is that going to stop me from dreaming? If I stayed in that, sort of belief system that I was just an alcoholic and I had to live one day at a time and fucking had to, do you know what I mean? Can't dream ahead because you have to keep everything in the day, then I wouldn't be doing this. So it's for me to step out of the label that has been associated with me in a, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I'm trying to say?
That's exactly what I was thinking in the car on the way up, because I'd seen the pictures of, you were talking last night as well, and a couple of people had said, look, and I love his story. And then I was thinking to myself, well, your story's important and I love that you give it, but how long will you go being defined as that story?
So it's important. So last night I actually didn't talk about my story. So now obviously you have to do a bit of it because people in the room don't know me, but I actually talked about, right, we all have a story. Everybody has a story. I'm lucky in the fact that, you know, I went back in the hurling or whatever and got a wee bit of a platform, and I was like, right, I could maybe use this in a way of showing people that there's a way out by sharing my story. But now it's not even about my story anymore. And Sean will tell you, like, it's about the next person and the next person and the next person. Like, come you on and tell your story now, because I've told it. We all have our shit. I always say that to people, and we all have our traumas and our emotional triggers and stuff like that. But we all have a choice after we're aware of it, and that's what I talk about now. Is we have this choice, and these are the steps that it took to overcome the cards that it was dealt with. And Matthew Toman was in last week and said, things don't happen to you, they happen for you, and I believe that now too. So all the things that have happened to me, it's not because you're right. You're at the start, it was constantly going and telling a story and going in, and I was like, there has to be something else that come out of this. So it's action and choice, and what steps did I take, and what steps can you take to overcome adversity?
You ever read the book? It's called Belonging by, is it Owen Eastwood.
No, I haven't.
I think it's Owen Eastwood. I don't. The book's called Belonging anyway, and there's it's not an idea, but there's a part in it. It's a thing called Vakapapa, and I think it's a Maori. It's not a ritual, but it's hard to describe what it is. But and we use it in teams. So what we do is we show where the team started, where the team is today, and where the team wants to go. And it's like a river. It's a journey. And a big part of it is, like, this is done in teams, but what you've just described there is how you can do it in the individual. You have to own your story.
Yeah.
This is where I came from. And it's about, so a team would have the sun shining on them today. So the sun shines on you today. And what are you going to do to make the future where that river's now going, or the journey's going, better? But you can bring that into the individual. Own your story.
Yeah.
Own your past. Be proud of your past, because it led to who you are today.
But am I going to let that dictate my tomorrow, as in my happiness? Absolutely fucking not.
Yeah, you own it.
Yeah.
Then you understand, where am I today, right? And what are the decisions that I can make to make future me that thing?
Yeah.
So it's a journey. It's a river. So Vekapapa, it's brilliant. It's
I'll have to read that.
yeah. I think it's Owen Eastwood. The book's called Belonging. I got a lot from it. Because when you're working with teams, you want to create belonging. So for me, I scour books for not scour books, but scour books. Look through books for just little things on belonging, how to create safety. But the principle of that, I never thought about it until you just spoke there. You can condense it into individual. Own your backstory.
Yeah.
Own it. Be proud of it, because that's you.
Yeah.
Understand that today the sun's shining on you to make great decisions, to make big decisions, to make bold decisions for where the journey goes after. Like I do this thing every week. I do one daring act, and it's been really helpful since I started to do it, because for future me. So one daring act, a lot of the time it can be, well, sometimes it might be texting a girl that you like.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
That doesn't always go anywhere. But for me as well, it's emailing such and such who works for such and such professional team. They mightn't get back to you, but sometimes, like at the minute, I'm talking to some really great people simply because I did a daring act, which was send them an email. But that's for future me, because the sun's shining on me today to do something big, bold, brave, exciting for future me.
Yeah. Because you deserve it.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've only probably... And I love the way you say about the river, because I would always say about even my journey, about being the journey with no destination. And it's like, what is next? Do you know what I mean? What is, as Imelda May says, what is love?
Yeah. But it's we fear the future because it's unknown, and we fear the unknown. And I remember the best book that I ever read, and I was thinking about it again last night, and I was like, if I ever buy this book for you, it's a sign that I love you, because I bought it for two people. So if ever this arrives on your doorstep, I'm basically sort of opening my heart there. It's a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So
Who's amazing.
Yeah. So when I read that, so my backstory, my own backstory is that I played sport until I was 19. I absolutely hated it. Now, at underage, especially in soccer, I wasn't too bad, so there was opportunities available. But change room environments, performance anxiety, the inability to control or understand my own emotions just got the better of me, and I hated it. Mm-hmm. So I quit. And I did the opposite of being around it. I fled from it. So I went to university in Manchester, and as soon as Manchester was finished, I moved to France. Lived in France for 10 years. Lived in Germany for a year. Avoided it. But I had loads of things like loads of dreams and stuff about sport. I didn't really understand it. But I was a writer. So I'm a published author. I have a master's in creative writing, as well as the performance psychology master's in creative writing. I was extremely unhappy. Now, I wouldn't say it was having a huge impact on my life. I wouldn't define it as, I've worked with people who are depressed, and I wouldn't define it as that. I wasn't being authentic. You know, I wasn't being me. I was chasing something else to have an image. I wanted to be a cool writer. So I lived on €500 a month. eating baguettes with Nutella and bananas in them, drinking loads of wine, smoking cigarettes, thinking, I am a writer, this is what it's got to be, this is how I need to live. But I was extremely unhappy, so I started working with a life coach. And I was reading the classics, and I was reading, I've actually a note about Flann O'Brien, but if we get to it, we get to it. But my life coach, Hoda, she sent me a couple of books to read, and one of them was Becoming Supernatural. Book completely changed how I looked at life. It's the most important book I've ever read. The thing about it was coming to terms with and learning to get excited about the unknown.
Yeah.
That's
Rather
the
than
big
fear.
thing. Yeah. Like all your happiness, everything that you want in life is beyond fear, is in the unknown. You just got to go beyond it. So if I'm doing something, maybe not today because I no longer feel uncomfortable about talking and about being on podcasts. But when I started with podcasts, I used to intentionally write, I love this. I love what I'm going to do. I can't wait. I'm excited about this. I didn't feel that, but I was changing the narrative until that's what I became. But that's all about everything was the unknown. If I go to talk to a team, that's the unknown. I don't know how that's going to be accepted, but I've gotten to terms with it, and I love the unknown now. I'm going to put myself out there all the time. Now, don't get me wrong, frightens the crap out of me.
Yes.
But it's where everything that I want exists. I have to go to the unknown, and that's what Joe Dispenza, that book, taught me.
Yeah. Feel the fear.
Feel the fear, do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like fear. It was actually Bob Proctor who said about fear, and even the people who are successful, the difference between successful people and your average person is that we all have ideas, but the successful people turn the ideas into action, and the people who are just floating have the ideas but are afraid to take the action.
Yeah.
And it's like that fear, and I've talked about it before with the lads in rehab about false evidence appears real. Fear what? Fear's a feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like just like being happy or being sad. It's just a feeling, like.
But what most people actually fears is they fear the feeling of fear.
Exactly.
Because like we sat there and we did something that was uncomfortable, but that's okay. You get beyond it.
Yeah.
But fear is just it's a chemical reaction within your body. Your heart speeds up. You start to sweat, and it's uncomfortable. It's supposed to be uncomfortable because it's there to teach you something or to warn you about something. But that's the thing that we actually fear, is that uncomfortable feeling. We're afraid of that feeling. But once you understand it's a chemical reaction and it's normal. Like, we're supposed to be a species. Like, the reason why we're able to have this conversation today and we're not extinct is because we fear. Because if I didn't have fear as a hunter-gatherer, I would have walked around the corner and would have been destroyed by a predator. So we're a tentative species, and it got us to where we are today. But we no longer have real threat. So that fear thing is like a default that isn't really necessary anymore. It's about getting beyond that. It's about understanding, that reaction that I'm having, it's not needed for here.
Yeah.
When there's a lion in front of me, I need that reaction. I need fight, flight, freeze for that lion, that real threat. But actually, if I'm going for a job interview or if I'm going for whatever, I don't need that. That's not necessary here.
Yeah. And do you think then this all comes into whenever you're living at a soul level and actually going and living by your purpose, it makes then you more excited to step into that because you believe in your gut what you're actually doing.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference, because if what you're doing on a daily basis in terms of maybe your day job, maybe your hobbies, maybe the people who you're spending time with isn't in alignment with what your purpose is or what your goals is or what you want to become, then of course there's going to be fucking fear and confusion there. So it's getting all that in alignment with each other. No?
Like, purpose. So I would work a lot. So again, work in sport, work as a life coach, general public, and we talk about purpose. And then I kind of describe it as a cheat code. Maybe it undervalues what it is, but it's a good way of showing people how it works. So long as you think about yourself, you're restricted as to what you can do. That's normal.
Yeah.
It's part of your ego. It's protective. It's self-protection. Because your goal in life is to prolong the species or whatever. So let's protect, etc., etc. So I use it as a burning building analogy. If I said I want you to run into that burning building, right, and roofs colliding, falling in, chances are you won't do it, because your mind goes, right, what's going to happen to me?
Yeah.
Okay, that could fall on me. I'm going to get injured. I'm going to...
Yeah.
Simply because you're thinking about yourself. Now we talk about purpose. A good purpose, it encapsulates other people. You go beyond yourself.
Well, let's do it. So, my purpose in life is to show people, to show, not tell, to show people that no matter how bad things are, that we all have the ability to bounce back. To show people that you can always have a better quality of life. That's my purpose today.
So it involves other people.
Yeah.
Now let's say that burning building's still there, but the people that you love are in that building. And I said, where you go? You would go.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
you've stopped thinking about yourself and the damage that can cost you. So when people are looking for purpose, it involves contribution to other people. So what you've said there is to show people contribution. So we have to look for how can I contribute to other people. So mine is to give people power. That's especially in sport, because I felt like I was powerless.
Okay.
So therefore, I didn't realize that this was happening until someone I was dating. God, I've mentioned a couple of people. I'm not, it's not a free for all. But she said to me, she was like, "Oh, you're going back to rectify the wrongs that happened to you." I was like, "Am I?" I was in France and I was moving back to Ireland to work with teams, but I kind of am. So it's a full circle thing, because that's my purpose, is to empower people in situations where I find myself powerless.
So, all the more importance for accepting and appreciating that young Gareth who felt so lost in a changing room.
He's
because
so
that's
valuable.
made you who you are now.
He's so valuable.
Yeah.
People go, like, I would have had connections with clubs in England and stuff. Like, I really, I don't want to state that I was in any way great, but at a young age, when you've been playing football with your older brothers, you have some very basic skills, maybe more than other people. So you have the ability to do things that maybe the ones around you can't do at the minute.
Yeah.
So you looked a little bit better. So I'm not trying to say that I was good in any way, but that me who suffered in that change room, is completely valuable today. And people go, well, would you not have wanted to be a... No, that's not necessary. What's necessary is, can I absorb what I learned? Can I own my past? And can I then use my past in a way to help other people, to give people power, so that they're not sitting in the change room as a 14, 15-year-old boy, hating where he's at, feeling, I felt lost, I felt alone, I felt bullied, I felt whatever. Well, what can we do? Can I make that environment so that doesn't happen? So that's my purpose and that's my drive. Now, that's in sport, in life coaching, in working with parents or working with people in business. Can they take power to create the life that they want to create?
And how does that make you feel?
Look, it's difficult. But I have all the little cues that I need to help me. So I'll have it on a post-it beside my workstation. If I'm jumping on a Zoom call to work with someone, why I do what I do. And then I go, oh yeah, let's go and do it.
So reminders.
Yeah. Because if I don't, we won't remember. Because what will happen is, I'd go from here, let's say I've got a Zoom call later on, and then there's someone that pulls in front of me in the car and it's a little bit dangerous, whatever, and I switched on fight, flight, freeze, and now I'm in autopilot. And then all that fear and stuff comes in, and then I not do what I'm set out to do. But if I have a little cue that'll switch me back into who I want to be and how I want to show up, then I'll show up as that.
Self-image script.
In what do you mean?
So, like, I've been working on sort of writing a self-image script of who I am, not today, but who I want to be. So I am whatever, and I have my own rehab centre right here in Belfast, and blah blah blah, and being consistent on the Antrim team, being consistent in life, and having a good quality life. At the minute, all that is because I'm working on it, do you know what I mean? But I'm going towards it. But it's me having that self-image script to live like I'm already there every day.
Yeah.
As in, because we live in a world where we're like, I'll be happy when. So I'll be happy when I lose a stone. I'll be happy when I have a few more quid in my bank account. I'll be happy, whatever, when I get a woman. Me too. But and it's like, but why can we not enjoy this whole process of
Yeah.
of becoming this person? Because when we get there, and you know yourself, when we do achieve goals, it's like, oh, that's that. And I forgot about the process and the obstacles and overcoming the adversity that came along the way. And I love it. I love the process of me becoming this person who I'm excited about.
So this is what we call emotional control. So emotional control, when I'm talking to people, I say, give me 3 emotions that you want to feel on a daily basis. And they might say happiness, contentment, joy. But we project that into a goal, and that's why I'm not huge on goal setting. I like to create a vision. For me, it feels longer term. And we go, right, if I lose that stone or whatever, that's when I'm going to feel that thing. So I've attached an emotion to something in the future.
Mm-hmm.
But emotional control basically says that...
That's 2 stone to lose, by the way.
Emotional control basically says that you can feel anything at any time, whenever. So if I said to you, right, if you said, right, happiness is something that I want to feel on a daily basis, what's your recipe for happiness? So what is your recipe for, let's say, happiness? What's that look like?
Well, I would look at it more as contentment.
So what would that look like?
So looking after myself, as in, so I do take action on this, to be fair. I have one day, no matter what it is, a week, worse for me, like.
Yeah.
Because I'm constantly, and I don't mind saying it, I'm a giver.
You have to find balance.
Yeah.
That's where burnout comes from. Like,
Exactly.
people think burnout's a physical thing, it's a mental
No.
thing. It's about, I once had it described to me as breathing.
Yeah.
And I love that image. If I just exhale all the time, giver,
Yeah. Yeah.
there's nothing coming in, and I'm going to, if I'm a taker, and there are loads of takers out there too, and I'm just constantly breathing in, it doesn't work. So I have to find both. So if I'm working with an athlete and they're saying, or even just general public, and they're saying, look, I feel burnout, it's like, you're not able to find the other thing.
Yeah.
So we have to change your perspective. If you're giving a lot to sport, what are you getting back?
Yeah.
Let's look at what you're getting back. And then suddenly that energy click.
So it's a fair exchange of energy.
Yeah, it's an exchange of energy that's going in, going out. You have to be able to look at, and that's why sometimes even with people who are working and have, let's say, they've a big salary, but they're money's an energy exchange too. Don't be put off by the idea of money. It's not dirty. It's an exchange of your value and your energy. So see it coming in and enjoy it coming in, and that's a good way to make an energy exchange as well.
Mm-hmm.
People, you grew up with this attitude.
Is that an Irish thing?
Yeah, but we grew up in an attitude because we're a poor species, if we're a species. Yeah. But we grew up in an attitude that we're always jealous of people who made money, so therefore we're going to create a negative image of them. Rich people are snobs.
Yeah.
So if rich people are snobs, I don't want to be a snob, so I'm not going to be rich. Yeah. I'm going to do everything in my possibility to not make money. But I want money because the great things in life happen with money. Mm-hmm. So we have to change our attitude towards money. Like, money is stored value of work you did at another time to then use. Like, money came into the world. I had corn, you had apples. They weren't harvested at the same time, so I needed to store that value of something in order for me to be able to exchange for your apples. So that we stored that in money. Mm-hmm. So what it is a store of our work. Mm-hmm. It's a great thing then. Mm-hmm. Money creates unhappiness. Money creates huge happiness in the world. So many great things are like you're on your way to creating a rehab center with money. It's going to be a great thing. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that's great money. Mm-hmm. So that's your energy coming back in again. You have to. Perspective is key. Perspective is one of the most powerful things that we have and that we control, but we don't feel like we can control it. You can change your perspective on anything. And
it's all down to relationships with certain things, as in money, as in people, as in whatever. Fuck. It is fascinating, isn't it? But I want to talk about, just before, do you want to touch on anything else?
I had a little note,
go ahead,
right?
Go ahead.
Because now this goes back into environments and culture, whether it's in business or whether it's in sport or whatever that might be, or even in a relationship. So again, I love literature. Mm-hmm. Like that was my passion in all of my 20s was literature. And there's an Irish writer called Flann O'Brien. So born Brian O'Nolan, wrote in the Irish Times as Miles Nagopaline, but published as Flann O'Brien. He's got this book called The Third Policeman. And there's a little idea in it, right? that you were born under a certain wind, and that wind had a certain colour. And it's about being able to sort of project your lifespan depending on that colour. Because every year, so you were born, let's say you're born under a certain colour, and you were given a veil to wear that resembled that colour. So then the following year, you're given another one, you put it on top. When that colour eventually becomes black, that's when your death happens.
Mm-hmm.
And the third policeman, and it's actually called Policeman Fox, which is great. He was born under such a bright colour that he's immortal, because no matter what veil he puts on, it doesn't dim his colour. So I take that approach with teams. If I've been asked to work with a team, is that you go in and you look at the environment and you go, what energy's been given here? What's the colour of that energy? Does it have a future? Does it have a long-term future? Does it have a short-term future? Is that producing an energy like joy, happiness, contentment, caring? Or is that producing an energy that is jealousy, anger, embarrassment, shame? Because all colours have a frequency, and you can match that frequency with the frequency of energy. So if an energy is given off, you can match it to a colour. So therefore, if I add one season upon 2 seasons upon 3 seasons, is that going black? Is this thing dead? So that's how I judge culture. How long does this culture have? If I added 1 year of this energy and this colour to another year, does it go black, or does it remain white and pure and long term? So I just had it written down in my book, and I was like, if I get asked about culture, that's what I want to talk about, because I love that image.
Which then leads me on, it's incredible, but leads me on then to, and I don't know whether you did touch on it there halfway through the podcast about Mahara, about Glenn, and you probably do know the backstory between St John's and Glen, as in my club, through, like, we were probably the most successful club in Antrim growing up. They were Derry. We were sort of fortunate enough that we were in football. Like, I have 5 minor championships, 4 under-21 championships. Used to meet Glen most years in St Paul's or Craigan, and it was nearly like these are the next 2 teams, as in St John's would probably dominate Antrim, Glen would dominate Derry, and both teams sort of took not a spiral, but went flat for a couple of years, as in I thought Glen would have won a championship long before they actually won a championship. Now, Slough-Mead were obviously there and they're an amazing team, and St John's, due to a few different reasons, one that I probably take a bit of responsibility for in 2017, whenever I was in the height of my madness and transfer clubs and stuff like that, and ended up winning the championship for Andover. But it goes beyond that, like that step and that culture and that making the breakthrough into senior, and we still haven't obviously won a championship yet, and it doesn't fucking sit well with me. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't. I think about it every night when I go to bed. Now I'm going to myself, I'm gonna put myself under far too much pressure, but I'm also looking at Glen and Croke Park last week and going, that can be achieved, because we used to be on a par with them. And I'm not saying we're going to Croke Park and that, but we all have to have dreams, like, you know, and it's always been my dream from a kid. But I can only look from the outside looking in, and you said there about the work that you do. You do fucking amazing work, and that has to be highlighted too. And the impact that you've had on that Mahara team, along with Malachy and the people you're working with, of course, for me, just looks like it's fucking unbelievable.
Well, look, to be honest about it, Malachy does a huge amount of work there.
Yeah.
You know, I work with a lot of the individuals, and look, we touch on all these things, and we touch on how can you impact this culture and whatnot. Yeah. But like if we go back to that idea of energy and what that looks like and what colour that looks like, for me, what I get is a really bright colour.
Yeah.
That's if I asked you to define the colour of the culture in St John's, what's the colour?
It's not yellow. It's not bright, like, but there's action being taken, which is we spoke about it. There's an awareness there, which has been there, and I'm a big believer of nothing changes if nothing changes. So there is action being taken, and our two sets of management teams are fucking amazing now. As in Aaron Douglas for the football, Damien McCallum with the hurling, who are both working together and are powered for the one cause. They're and it is, you can feel it. So it's turning into, it's getting brighter, but
you have to play the infinite game.
Yes,
you can't have it finite.
And that's something that exactly. And are the wheels moving? Probably, but is it flowing? No.
Well,
is that?
I understand, but it's all part of the infinite game.
Yeah,
it's all part of.
And by the way, I'm part of the problem. I think you have to take responsibility in a team setting where, if it's not going well and you're a part of it, then you're a part of the problem. But I'm very solution based.
Yeah. So
I don't necessarily, what I'm saying there, I'm part of the problem, but what I'm saying is I can also be part of the solution, because even with lads who I'm working with in rehab, or what, I ask them for the solution. What's the solution here? What are you looking for? What is your solution? So I'm very much part of, right, do I want it? Of fucking course I want it. Like, I want it more than anything. It's my deepest desire to want it. Like,
here's the thing though, right? So you can be part of the solution, but you've also said that I want to be in Crow Park. It mightn't happen in your time.
But it might.
It might. Mm-hmm. Of course it might. But
yes.
Can you accept that it mightn't?
Of course.
Because if, like, I remember working with a player, a really nice fella, coming near retirement, and he's like, I'm going to stick about another year because I want to win a championship. And I'm going, but if that's what you're bringing, then you're not bringing something long term. If your desire is just to win another championship, then something's getting lost here. You want to stick around to make sure that the young fellas coming through can play at their best. So when you're saying, look, I want to be at Crow Park,
that was my function. That
desire to have a finite sort of timeline, that it might happen within your timeline, is the thing that can bring about poor decisions. You have to accept that it mightn't happen in your time.
So it's probably putting myself under that too much pressure. But we're talking about why and stuff like this here, and I had this talk last night where, like, you're talking about overcoming adversity and some of the things you've achieved. Now, listen, we went to Crook Park with Antrim and stuff like that, but I mean, from being someone who was fucking 18 and was like playing in both sets of county teams and 3 colleges all-stars and stuff, like, it was good, it was class, and I was a role model to lead to loads of people, and then going full circle and being the person who people more or less walk past in the street. But I often talk about, and listen, I'm with you on this, and that's after we played Waterford last year, and like, that's nearly my way in a sporting sense. Just for people who are wondering what I'm showing them, it's actually, there's about 20 kids in a photograph surrounded by, like, and that's like, I want to inspire people. Like, I want to do it for the next person.
But see, part of what you're saying as well is a non-controllable. The idea of winning is a non-controllable, and you have to put that to bed. You can't win.
Because that is not necessarily in my control.
Yeah, it's not in your control.
True.
It's a side product of good habits.
Okay.
Win is a side product of good habits. Now, you can win shallow again. So I don't want to say Derry or Tyrone won shallow. But if you win an All-Ireland, but without putting good processes in place to win the next 4, you've won shallow. If the things fall apart. Whereas if you win deep, like I would say Glen are a team who are winning deep. It's because even when they get beat by Maherfeld in the final, I think it was 2019, like, I know very little about Glen's history. I've researched it a bit. But, you know, if that had been their target to win that, then they fall apart afterwards. But if their target had been, we're a long-term team, then you start to reap the benefits of good habits, good behaviours over time, and then you become dominant. But then, this is a game, part of the infinite game, is that you have to have an existential change. I can't remember what's fully called. There's 5 rules for an infinite game, but the existential thing is about one day you have to change it. You have to change it. So if I look at Crossmaglen and your dynasties, teams that kind of fell apart after such huge success, it's because they continued along the same way that they were going. You have to change. You have to change it up, and you have to take the risk of changing it up. You might suffer for a year, you might suffer for 2 years, but then you've got another 10 diamonds. And that's the infinite game. We might suffer today, but tomorrow we're back.
Because we're planting seeds.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. Gareth. Unbelievable. It was good, and it was something completely different to what I've ever done on a podcast, I suppose, and getting into it and being open and honest and transparent. And I genuinely only have someone coming in the door now to start recording. I would talk to you for another hour. Like, I don't even know how long we were talking there for, but really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. Really
appreciate it. We'll talk afterwards about that venue, but like I said, that thing that we did there, the eye gazing, a lot of people might already know about it, because it's not something that I've come up with, but there's huge value to it.
Yeah.
And what I want to do is I want to create a space, let's say it's in Belfast, in a nice place that's comfortable for people to come. Let's say 20 people to come, and just for that half an hour or hour, whatever it is, we practice that, because it's going to be so uncomfortable. But if you keep doing it week upon week, we do it once a week or whatever, you're going to get so much value from it. You're going to learn to accept yourself, because the more people that see you for who you are, the more you're going to be comfortable being you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to call that Instagram group, I wrote it down this morning, Eye Gazing Social. I think we'll call it that. So if anyone's listening, look at an Instagram. I'll go and create the page now.
Yeah.
There'll be one follower, that'll be me. And then we'll do the work in the background to set this up, and then we go for it. Because for me, like, people say to me, oh, when you're going to create bonding, what do you do? Do you go away? Do you do your seed dips, or do you do your goat charting, or do you do your this? And I say, no, the work's so much deeper than that. Yeah. It's not an overnight switch. We got to work on belonging cues, and eye contact's a big one.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's do it. And absolutely. I'm buzzing. So how can I work with you?
How can you get me? On Instagram. So I'm not going to give him a WhatsApp. Instagram. So it's Gareth Fox _
Okay.
And then you can just get me there. And look,
I'll tag you in all the stuff anyway.
My page isn't private, it's open, and I love when people send me messages, because I send people messages out of the blue all the time. People reply, people don't reply, that's okay. But it's all about just sharing information. I love this thing of we're all invisible teammates.
Yeah.
I got it from a guy, Simon Sinek, who's the Infinite Game as well. And that's how I see people. Like, I know people who work in my field who are very closed, and they don't have an abundance mindset. They're very sort of lack mindset, and everything is competition. I say, no, we're teammates. We're working towards the same thing. Let's share information. Let's just make things better, you know? So if anyone wants to get in contact, send me a message. I'll get back to you. I love that.
And together we're going to achieve anything.
Yeah.
Class. Thanks everybody for tuning in. I hope you got something. I'm left. My head's going 100 miles an hour, but it was absolutely fascinating. And go check out Gareth's page and the new Instagram group. And thanks all so much for the continued support. Remember, our merchandise and stuff like that's still available on Instagram. Tara will have the website and stuff made up hopefully by the end of the week, or next week maybe. And thanks for the support, and keep going, keep talking, and I will see you all next week. Thank you. Bye.